Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Buccateers podcast. You're tuned in once again. I'm your host, Tampa Tones. Some of the crew's out tonight. We got a little bit of the crew on the way. Stunna will be here at approximately 7:07 Eastern. He says he's busting his ass home from work, so we'll see him shortly in about 6 minutes or so. Katz is out of the building tonight. Cody's out of the building tonight, but we do have their score predictions and MVPs of the game and some words of wisdom there. So when we do all that good stuff, we'll be able to share stuff from them. Bucko the Bruce might be joining. He didn't quite clarify, so we'll see. But nonetheless, we have a special guest. We'll get into him in a little bit here. Good old Brad Thompson, former football player, NCAA, and he's also Bills Mafia member, a good buddy of mine. We go way back. Used to play Little League Baseball, good basketball together. Now he's actually living in the good life of Florida, and he's a Bills fan, so that's cool. Been a Bills fan for a while now, quite some time. So we're going to break down the game with him, get his knowledge on Buffalo a little bit. He's here to help us, share some things about the Bills. We've obviously seen the Bills a lot in prime time so far this year from the nature's eye, but we're going to go over kind of the inconsistencies of Buffalo, the game plan that the Patriots brought against Buffalo and how that succeeded, although it was a weird one. Brad's defensive Bills player to look out for at that. Bucs getting healthy. Most important game left on each of these teams' schedules. For this might be the most important game for one of these teams, both of these teams, none of these teams. We'll get into that. Scores and MVPs of the game. Bets of the game that we like. It could be a prop bet, over under yards bet, whatever the hell we're thinking. Thursday night football predictions, because we do have a pretty even kickoff tonight between Pittsburgh and Minnesota. That should be fun. And then we're going to do our walk-off one big thing as always, and we're going to bounce out of here about 7:50 Eastern on the dot. Nonetheless, I'll stop talking for a minute. We're going to let in Mr. Brad himself. Brad, how the hell are we? How you doing tonight? Are you amped for Sunday? And where can the good people follow you at on Twitter?
Yeah, so I'll start there on Twitter, Dr. Brad Thompson. I'm not quite the degrees of a doctor, but I do have a master's in something. But yeah, so longtime Bills Mafia member, grew up in Chicago, but my dad's whole side, born and raised in Buffalo. So once you're a Bills fan, you're in that shit for life. So got stuck there in the early 2000s for a while, but now we're getting some riches with Josh Allen and the crew. But yeah, no, glad to have you guys. Glad to break down the game for Sunday. A little bit tonight action as well, getting the week 14 started, which is usually the last week of fantasy football for most people. So big week there as well before that playoffs start. And yeah, just excited to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, and there is some fantasy news tonight that people out there want to keep an eye on real quick before we dive deep into the show. So good mentioning fantasy, my brother. It's actually Dalvin Cook is going to play tonight, and he might not even be limited at that. He might get – remember the last time this sort of thing happened to Dalvin Cook? He rushed for like 31 carries, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So don't be hesitant to put Cook in your lineup tonight. I actually have Cook, and I'm playing a guy who had Alexander Madison, so that is interesting to say the least, and winner gets in the playoffs. But I actually forgot about your Buffalo fandom. That's interesting that Coach Thompson used to be a Buffalo native, whole family from Buffalo. And it's funny, quick background check. I've played for Brad's dad. Brad's dad was my coach in football. My pops was Brad's coach in basketball. We've played each other in championship baseball or semifinal baseball back in the day. So just good to talk to old buddies. And then actually we went to Eastern Illinois together. Eventually played some flag football there. So things come full circle. Now we're on the Buccateers podcast. And, life is good. But, brother, Buffalo, up and down this year, kind of, to say the least. Still – I'm not scared about my Super Bowl pick. I still had Bills Bucs. The second year in a row for me picking Bills Bucs. Obviously, Bills are showing some blemishes here and there, specifically on the ground game of late. But they do have good frontline guys. They have Ed Oliver up there. They have Mario Addison up there. They have Jerry Hughes up there, although they're more rushing the passer. They could still do a hell of a job stopping the run as well. Teams, for whatever reason, just seem to have been having their way with them. But it's not like Bills are laying duds every week. I mean, it seems like they're still blowing teams out. They beat the Saints 31-6, and then they beat the Jets 45-17, although it's the Jets. We've seen the Jets play pretty well at home at times this year. They beat the Bengals. They beat the Titans, I want to say. So they show in spurts, but then you guys lost to Jaguars. You guys kind of got the doors kicked in by Indy. You lost a heartbreaker to Patriots. So the past 5-6 weeks before that, you beat Miami pretty good, and Miami's the hottest team in football right now. So it's really been a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of season so far for Buffalo. As we do have Stunna joining us, we'll welcome him in here shortly. But Brad, what's your thoughts so far on Buffalo's season, specifically of late, kind of the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type role, up and down, as some people might say?
No, yeah, you hit it right on the head. And that's my screensaver is, our schedule. I don't know if you could see that, but is, once we got to that 4-1 mark, we slid up the power rankings, and everyone's like, 1-2 with the Bucs at that point, and your Super Bowl prediction was almost spot on after week 5. And then ever since then, it's been back and forth, win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. So we're coming off a loss. That means a win, right? But probably not. We'll get to that later on in predictions, but is, the consistency, like you said, isn't there yet. 1 week you see, the team that made it to the AFC Championship last year. And then, when we beat the Chiefs earlier this year, the fan base is like, we overcame that step. And I don't know if the team felt that, but there's certainly been inconsistency from that very point on, starting with that Titans heartbreak loss at the goal line there. And it's been every other week. And I don't know. I would say up until last week, I don't think it was a coaching issue. And then it was so clear that Belichick outcoached McDermott. And that's been a lot of talk in the media up in Buffalo is coaching. And who would have thought, right? Coach McDermott up for Coach of the Year the past couple of years. Stuck it to the Pats twice last year, stuck it to them even at their place. That was a primetime game as well. And then what Belichick pulls out of his hat yesterday, or last week, I should say. And, he just ran it down our throats and we couldn't stop it. And I know we're kind of going to talk about, the model of how, they said it. But I think it started before that. It started with the Colts, right? That inside power game, we had no answer for that. And you mentioned those names up front. And then so I got to watch some of the all-22 angle, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with. That all-22 angle revealed one thing to me. And it was our biggest weakness, which I never would have thought, is Trey Edmonds could not get off blocks. So basically what they were doing all game was this 22 gap stuff, back and forth, left and right, which is just a halfback blast if you want to do it with a puller. And what they were doing is just getting that center guard combo. They would tag team either Star or Ed, Oliver, and then that one guy would work up to Edmonds right in the middle, and he could not get past any of them. And that's supposed to be his strength. We have Matt Milano, who's more of a pass-friendly, pass coverage kind of linebacker, you could say. And Edmonds is supposed to be our, 6'5", 250-pound run stuffer. And he's getting pushed back 5-7 yards every single time. We weren't touching, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson till 7-8 yards down the line. And over and over, they just ran it down our throats. So there's no other way to say that. It wasn't pretty. We know what we got to fix. We'll cover the offensive side of the ball, but clearly the weakness right now is that run defense.
Yeah, and for those of you unfamiliar, all 22 is great. Usually our two of our co-hosts, Bucko and Cody, are more of the all 22 go-getters for the Buccateers. I watched a lot of all 22 in years past. This year, not so much. It did get off all 22 got off to a slow start this year. I remember they had some problems uploading it early on in the season, so drove me off, and then ever since I kind of forgot about it. But if you really want to break down the game, watch a game great from all 22. It is what it says. You get to see all 22 players, so you get to see plays break down and things really happen in front of you with your own eyes. So it's great to see, and that's exactly right on Buffalo. I announced the game Monday night, and I felt like Patriots kind of kept doing the same type of runs, the same styles over and over and over and over, no matter if it was Stevenson or Harris. Obviously, Harris left the game injured a little bit. And Buffalo, one out of every couple times, one out of every handful of times, they'd make tremendous plays in the backfield. But here and there, New England would just get the big run, bam, up the middle. It wasn't even like flashy necessarily. And I guess Buffalo even knew pretty much that
Right.
they were going to, run the ball at that point. So I'm just interested in your take necessarily, I guess, on how do you think Buffalo can adapt and change that perhaps against one of the better, if, running backs, at least right now in football, and Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he actually gave us trouble if you look back to his last year in Jacksonville, maybe if it was last year, but whenever they made that playoff run with Blake Bortles, and the Bills broke their 17-year drought, and that's why we lost that game. Believe it or not, it's not Blake Bortles, right? It was Lenny Fournette, with the Jags. So we'll definitely be excited to try to get rematch versus him, and obviously Brady versus the Bills is a huge story. I think we've beat him one time ever. No, I'm just kidding. I think it's 3 though. All jokes aside, I think it's like 20 something and 3. But yeah, stopping that run is crucial for sure. And now you know it's coming, right? The Colts put it on tape. Now it was a little dictated by the weather last week, but I think a huge part of that to add to it is it's more about keeping Belichick's game plan to me was it's about keeping the Bills offense off the field, right? We're known for that high explosive offense. Well, they can't do crap if they're not on the field, right? I don't know what the time of possession was, but it was clearly dominated by the Patriots, right? Their drives, even if they only got a first down or 2, we're 4 or 5 minutes off, and Allen's over there just pacing. So not much you can do from an offensive standpoint when they're doing that, but is in terms of I do think you'll see some inactives from last week back up in some depth guys that probably your Buccateer guys aren't familiar with, but our 6th and 7th defensive linemen, we do have one of the deepest defensive lines, just like you guys. I'd say both are probably top 3 or 4 in terms of depth on that defensive front. And I'm gonna guess that some of those veterans, your Mario Addisons, your Jerry Hugheses, those guys are going to lose playing time if they're not stopping the run. These young Bucks, Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, they're making plays, but they're only getting about 30-40% snap share right now. And if they're the ones stopping the run, just because Jerry Hughes and Mario Addison can get after the pass, at some point you're going to have to put those young guns in and try to plug up that middle. The only other thing that I would say about that is Leslie Frazier is known for a 4-3 defense. Going back to his days in Minnesota and really going back to his days in Chicago before they installed the 46. And I would not be surprised if you start to see elements of that 46. It wasn't until very late in the game that we started dropping Jordan Poyer down. And then it was kind of a little too late, right? We were getting beat by then. I would be surprised. He loves to have those 2 safety backs. He loves it because he was a DB himself. And the real reason because of that is because Trey White's out. So we were covering our outside corners with those 2 deep safeties. And, well, teams aren't even exploiting that, right? You would have never watched that game last week and known Trey White was out, right? Who cares? If they're going to run the ball right up the middle, that don't matter. So I'll begin to see some different guys rotating up front. Our linebacker core is really set with Milano. We do get A.J. Klein back, who is mostly a special teamer, but he was on, I believe, COVID last week. So we'll get him back. And so a few changes up front, but I really think Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott will break out of that 4-3 2-deep shell if they have to.
Yeah, and Leslie Frazier, a familiar name in Tampa, used to be Buccaneers defensive coordinator back in the day. So he is capable, of making adjustments and whatnot. And then what I thought was kind of funny was Hyde press conference after the game. People were asking Hyde, is it embarrassing? It's like, Buffalo's defense did their job at the end of the day. Yeah, it was a weird mechanism of losing, but it's not necessarily their defense's fault that they only scored 10 points in the football game and lost. I know that New England did run, and it was hard to move the ball with their offense, but at the end of the day, they only let up 14 points, so it's not like they got their doors blown out. But like you said, the time of possession was killer. And other things like that were killer. I'm really interested to see how Ed Oliver does in this one. He'll be going up against some guards. And I think it's interesting you mentioned the inactives list as well, because we have a question about fantasy. I think we'll get into it in a little bit. But it was interesting to see, even on the offensive side of the ball, you had some wide receivers inactive, and you had Zach Moss up, who's kind of been up and down this year too. So, Cleveland me is it's my Joe is asking, why couldn't the Bills stop the Pats run when they knew it was coming? Very concerned, and then he goes, already answered. So yeah, Brad kind of went in on that a little bit already. So yeah, but Brad, you have anything else to allude to on the running part of it, or what we might see in terms of, you think they're going to do Leonard Fournette any different than how they've approached the past couple of big runners, or do you think they're going to stay consistent and try and make other facets? Because like you said, Trey White out, that's huge.
Huge.
Top corner in the game right there. And then we're going to welcome in Stunna after this. But I just like, how has Trey White affected this defense? And moving forward, do you think they continue to make adjustments, or the defensive package we've got in the past few weeks, do you think that's what we see from here on out?
Yeah, no, good question. We haven't yet quite got the answer to Trey White, because if you don't remember, he went out in that Saints game, and that game was kind of a blowout. And then last week, they passed the ball a whole record 3 times, right? So we're starting a rookie, Dane Jackson from Pitt, who really hasn't got tested yet. Bills love him. We love the potential of him as possibly our future secondary corner if we can't retain Levi Wallace. But is we have 2 inexperienced guys on the outside. And then it will lead me to believe my defensive build to look out for, which is another corner that we'll talk about here in a second, just based on the matchup with Tampa Bay. But we haven't really seen Dane Jackson tested yet, and you bet your ass you will this week, because whether it's Godwin, whether it's Evans on the outside, I know Godwin's mostly in the slot, so it probably will be mostly on Mike, and Tom's played before, if you believe it or not, right? So he's going to see that rookie out there who has not got tested, and you best believe number 13 is going to be getting the ball. So we're going to see who Dane Jackson is this week, without a doubt. But in terms of the run, now the blueprint's out there. There's no secret about it. So it's how does Leslie Frazier and how does Sean McDermott react? Certainly, I'd say it starts with Trey Edmonds leading that middle. He's got to play better. I mean, he's a Pro Bowl player for the last 2 years, and he was getting mauled 5-6 yards down the field. So he needs to take, that pride check, as well as Matt Milano. Is those guys were getting tackles, but they were 7-8 yards down the field. You got to shed blocks. You got to be contacting running backs at 2-3 yards, especially a big back like Fournette. A big part of the Bucs run game in this pass game comes from Tom, but it also comes from Lenny Fournette, in his receiving ability, which we match up well in terms of Matt Milano. And then our safety is actually coming down as well if we do shift to cover 3. So I would say the biggest worry is that run game, right? Is normally I'd say if you didn't have a linebacker that has the coverage skills of Matt Milano, I would be very concerned about Lenny Fournette in the pass game and the matchups that can create. And even Gio Bernard, obviously Tom loves his third down check downs or whatever you want to call them. He's been doing that for years, going back to the James White days. But is that run defense got to get shored up? We know it. They know it. So we'll see how it all unfolds on Sunday.
Yeah, and we do have on Facebook here. For some reason, if it's like my personal Facebook, I can't share it here. But Casey McCullough asks, quick question. I got Delvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Conner, Cordell Patterson. 2 running backs, 1 flex. Who should I put in? First off, thanks for joining us tonight, Casey. We do appreciate it. I'll let you answer that first, Brad, before I answer. And in between answers, we're going to welcome in Stunna and get his opinion on that. But out of Delvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Conner, Cordell Patterson, sounds like he needs to start 3 of those guys. Delvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Conner, Cordell Patterson. Who you rolling with?
Yeah. My big thing with fantasy is don't outsmart yourself, right? Is you're rolling with Cook and Najee. If you have to decide between the 2, think about the game scripts in this game. And I'm actually an owner in one league of James Conner and Chase Edmonds myself. So I'm actually in the same kind of predicament. I think that Rams game with Arizona is going to be a shootout. So I do see a little more Chase Edmonds action, especially if it's a PPR format. That's definitely the big kicker there. Standard league, maybe lean Conner. Is PPR format, Chase Edmonds is going to get peppered, especially if they're playing from behind or get caught in that shootout with the Rams. So make sure you check your format. Obviously, those rankings do change a little bit. If it's standard, I'm hammering Connor because worst case, he's getting those goal line touches, right? So trust those two bell cows that you drafted, probably for a reason, right? Ride those guys. Don't outsmart yourself here. But pay attention to your format. If it's standard, I'm going Connor. If not, I'm going to pivot the other way.
Yeah, Stunna, first off, how the hell we doing tonight? And second off, who you got? 3 out of those 4. Delvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Conner, Cordell Patterson.
Every day's a blessing. I'm above ground. And I'll probably go Cordell Patterson and James Conner out of them.
And who would be your third out of Delvin Cook or Najee Harris? Cook's a little banged up.
Yeah. I would definitely not go Cook because, Pittsburgh, they have a decent defense. And so I would go with Najee Harris. I'm not too impressed with Minnesota. I think they're a product of the schedule.
The thing that's tough too for that question, I hate having too many Thursday night guys. It always makes me feel uneasy. Right. Although Cook and Harris are probably his first and second round picks, I would imagine, and then Connor and Cordell Patterson are the guys that he was able to fortunately acquire throughout the season. Most likely, he might have drafted James Conner, probably not Cordell Patterson. I did draft Cordell Patterson in that league. Somehow in that league, I only have three damn wins though. First round pick Saquon, third round pick Gus Edwards. That'll do that to you. So I'm gonna split the difference between you guys. So Casey, I don't think we were too much of a help. I'm gonna go with Cook, Harris, and Cordell Patterson. If I'm guessing, although I do love James Conner. I could see, like you said, I could see perhaps Cardinals needing to pepper and pass that one a little bit. That's a tough one, though. Those are 4 good running backs. You're pretty fortunate to be in the situation you are. So I don't think you could go wrong there. I'd start Cook and Harris for sure, and then Patterson and Connor to me is a coin flip. But it is hard with Cook. Since he is banged up, it's a Thursday night. I guess you're not really sure what you're going to get. Stunna. We have a shout out for you, my friend. Can't wait to see Stunna in Tampa. Bless Jesus. Any words to that?
Amen. You got to bless him. I mean, he's a miracle worker. And Tampa's my city. So we got to represent, every time we step out the door. And it's always good to spend time with family and friends.
That is indeed true. Good time or always great to spend time with family and friends. Can't wait to see you, brother. So, as we trickle onto this pod here, Stunna, I'm going to ask you this one first. Pat's game plan, how they beat Buffalo, you think that's how other teams moving forward will try and approach him? I don't think our offense necessarily with the passing power we have. Granted, Antonio Brown's suspended right now. We still have passing power, passing ability. Brady threw so many passes last week, more than 50% of our plays, or a lot more than that, were passes offensively. So I feel that we're gonna try and pass more. I know everyone's expecting a huge Lenny F game, and although I do see our fair share of Lenny F and Rojo on the ground, I don't see us shoring up too much passing. What say you, Stunna? Do you think we're gonna copy and paste Pat's game plan, or do you think it's gonna be Bucs ball?
I think the Pats game plan was a product of the weather. And it's definitely not going to be windy and chilly in Tampa. It's going to be hot and muggy. So no, we're going to do what we do best. We got Bruce Arians as our head coach. No risk and no biscuit attack. You know what's coming. And with Buffalo, the problem with them is their offense. Okay, they scored a touchdown off a muff punt against New England. And I'm in the unpopular belief that New England is highly overrated. And I think that New England is their defense is getting boosted because they played some pretty bad offenses. And I go back to your co-host when he talked about coaching. McDermott definitely is not the issue. It's definitely from the offensive side of the ball. So, the Bucs have the potential to be in a close contest, a defensive struggle, or if our defense shows up against a Bills offense that's struggling, we have the potential to, really open up the scoreboard. To me, Buffalo is trending in the wrong direction. They remind me a lot of the 2008 Buccaneers, who started 9-3 and ended up 9-7.
Yeah, and that was, I remember that year. We were 9-3. Monte Kiffin announced he was going with his son Lane to help him coach, and all of a sudden we lost 4 in a row. And then next thing you know, John Gruden was gone. Other things were gone. So hopefully, for Brad's sakes, it's not how Buffalo's season ends, because those weren't the best of times for us after that season. But Brad, do you agree with that? Do you kind of think it's Ball and their offensive coordinator's court, who is viewed as a head coach candidate, Brian DeBall? Do you think he has to make adjustments more so than McDermott? And do you think that the Patriots game plan was a product of the weather, or do you think you're going to see teams against Buffalo try and replicate that moving forward?
Yeah, so first I'll go with the latter part. Is weather certainly dictated that. I don't think Bill designed, or Josh McDaniels designed, to have 3 passes in that game. That's absurd. Even if you do have a rookie quarterback, like that playing in a primetime game. But so I do think it's a little mix of the weather, but I certainly think going into that game that they were really trying to duplicate what the Colts did, right? Is the Colts didn't have to make flashy plays to beat us either. And they put up, 40-something? I don't know. I tuned out third quarter. No, I'm just kidding. But is just follow that game plan. So Bill, he looks at obviously all the tape. He's going to exploit your weaknesses. He's going to play to his strengths. I don't think he wanted to test Buffalo's pass defense, because we do still have 2 very good safeties back there with a rookie quarterback. So he was probably going into that thinking he was going to go 70-30 run the ball. And then as soon as he saw, 120-mile-an-hour tornado out there, then that just made that decision even easier for him. And to go back to the coaching, I more meant when I said McDermott is not about defensive scheme. Obviously, is mostly Leslie Frazier, but just situational stuff. And that whether it's offense, defense, or whatever, goes back to the head coach at the end of the day, because he's the only guy on that sideline that can switch back and forth between the offense and defensive headsets. But to your main point. Is Brian Daboll trying to get a job next year, or is he trying to go back to Buffalo at this point? Right? A few weeks ago, we we're all, where's he going next year? And he's the hottest guy in the market after what he did last year with Josh and developing him. And then there's just boneheaded decisions left and right. And I think it's a product of multiple things. It's a big thing that we see as Bills fans every week is the concerned effort to protect Josh Allen in terms of no design run plays. And if anything, a few games earlier this year when push come to shove, it's 3rd and 1. It's a quarterback power left. It's quarterback power right. As soon as we kind of got off that Moss bandwagon, as soon as kind of Breida became active and all that, is we know Josh Allen's our power running back. And last week there was 0 designed runs. And you're telling me you went into a win-filled game with those elements with 0 designed runs for Josh Allen? That is a coaching choice by McDermott telling Daboll, you do not put our quarterback in harm's way today, because if it was up to Daboll, it would be quarterback power left, quarterback power right. So it's a mix of that communication. No one knows, what McDermott told Daboll to do, what not to do. But I have a feeling if we get the same situation come playoff time, whether it's the Patriots or another team, it's going to be cold and windy in Buffalo. Whether we host a game or not, or if we have to go to New England, obviously it's in the Northeast as well, is, we got to be able to run the football, and we're not doing it without Josh Allen. I think he took off on 3 or 4 scrambles, and all 3 or 4 were first downs, and all Bills fans are like, this is what we're waiting for. And then, we don't see it again for another quarter. So it's a huge part of the Bills offense is trying to balance that out. And, is I think it comes from McDermott coming from Carolina and dealing with Cam Newton, right? He knows that can be successful. He knows it. He's seen it. But what happened? Cam had 2 or 3 years of that prime, and then he faded. So I think he's trying to balance that act with Brian Daboll, that is, and I don't know what the end result's going to be. Are we going to see Josh loose? Are we going to try to get back to Zach Moss? That's a great decision for them in terms of, when we get down to the playoffs and push comes to shove, Josh Allen's got to be running quarterback powers. We've seen the way Baltimore has used Lamar. Obviously, it's shifted a little bit as his career's gone on, But you still got to use your best players at the biggest times. And we didn't see that last week, especially in big moments. Is Zach Moss was back out there, and I'm a Zach Moss fan. Don't get me wrong. Number 17 is our best power running back we have. So.
Yeah, and based on that, you're in agreement with 620 WDAE, Tampa Sports Radio in the morning, Ronnie and T-Crash show. All three of them, Ronnie, T-Crash, and Zach Blobner, like him or not, Tampa fans, they all said the same exact thing. They said Josh Allen is the Bills' best running back, and they would pound the over on his rushing yard total this week, which happens to sit at 31.5, which is actually tied for Devin Singletary for most on that Bills team. They both sit at 31.5. I would take the over on Allen, under on Singletary, perhaps, if I was betting myself, just because multitude of factors. But that's one thing for sure. Buffalo's best weapon in the ground game is Josh Allen. Whether they execute that or not moving forward, we'll see. But he is clearly their best ground and one of the best ground backs in the game. But before we get Stunna's opinion on that, we do have a question, and it kind of blends in with this one. It seems like it's about fantasy. Moss or Devin or Breda. So pretty much Zach Moss or Devin. I'm guessing Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, Matt Breda. Which one are you rolling with, Brad, in either, I guess, fantasy standpoint or Buffalo standpoint in general?
Yeah, well, hopefully you're in a position where you don't got to play either of them, right? As we just talked about, Josh being our best running back is it's got to be Devin Singletary, though, right? And everyone wants to find an excuse to get Breida the ball in space, and I get it. The dude's got wheels, and we want to see Zach Moss develop, and Devin Singletary is just that steady Eddie. He's not sexy. He doesn't run a 4.3 40. He's not going to run over you, but he's not as bad as people tend to believe. I don't know if he's a 20 carry back kind of guy. By any means. But if we do need to go one of those, it would probably be Devin. The biggest part about Devin as well, based on the Bills, Daboll's offense passing the ball 50 times a game, is Devin's our best pass protector as well. So that's a huge part of it. And obviously you guys know that from Tampa as well, is you got to be able to protect the passer if you're going to be standing next to your stud quarterback. Breida's obviously they want to get him on the edge, and that's just splash plays. And Breida actually came into existence when we declared Mckenzie inactive 2 weeks ago. So Isaiah Mckenzie, our returning specialist, kind of a touch pass, kind of jet sweeps kind of guy, whatever you want to call that role, is, he muffed like 2 punts, one punt, 1 kick return, made some boneheaded plays versus that Indianapolis game. And McDermott's made him inactive ever since. And so we need that splash, super fast 4-3 player in there. And we've turned to Matt Breida. So he was inactive the first 6 weeks. And he's been active after that, but you're only using him, for those 4 or 5 splash plays a game. Versus Devin Singletary is your steady Eddie and your best pass protector. So I'm going to lead Singletary there, even though it's not sexy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Singletary as well. I think he's the best all-around back out of the 3. He's probably the most upside back. I thought at one point it would be Zach Moss's backfield to lose, but he's fallen out of favor with the coaching staff, it seems, for sure. As you said, Matt Breida kind of factored into things by a surprising week 1 inactive for Zach Moss this year to start off. That wasn't only a surprise to NFL fans, but the fantasy owners out there. Needed 9 out of Devin last week. Got me 3. Damn, sorry to hear that. It seems like Devin Singletary didn't help you out there. So, Stunna, what say you, as we're halfway through the Buccateers, by the way, and we are with Brad Thompson of Bills Mafia, former college football athlete. Stunna, what say you on which one of the Bills running backs scare you the most? Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and Matt Breida. And Brad made a good point. If you can't pass block, your ass is out of there. We've seen that in Tampa this year. Ronald Jones, that's my guy running the ball, but for pass plays, he hasn't been as much because the couple times he has been, it's been a liability in pass protection, and we can't get Tom Brady hit. That would not be good. Stunna, what say you? Out of the Bills' backfield, which one you fearing the most?
Well, I agree with the earlier sentiment about Josh Allen being the biggest threat because we have had the scrambling quarterback this season. I think Devin Singletary is probably their best overall back, but I also think that the Bills probably need to go ahead and find a new position. And Matt Breida was a beast with San Francisco, but obviously
Yeah, Breda was pretty good in San Fran. Stunna, your mic faded at the end a little bit there, but we picked it up. Brad, defensive player, I know you mentioned the cornerback a little bit before. Is that who you're rolling with as your Bills defensive player to keep an eye on, or are you going elsewhere with that?
Yeah, I'm certainly going there. So when you ask that question, a bunch of things came up in my head is, Tremaine Edmonds, stepping back up in that bounce back game. But really is, you look at Tom Brady over the years and who does he target? He targets the slot and he targets those running backs out of the backfield. Looking at Tom, and obviously we've seen him a lot up here with the Patriots all those years, is that puts your eyes on one guy. And he's known for 101-yard interception return last year in the playoffs versus Baltimore, which propelled us to that win versus the Ravens. But it's Tyrone Johnson, who's a super underrated slot guy in this league. And that's a dime of a dozen. Those guys don't grow on trees. It's very hard to play in space. And right now, you could argue he's our best corner out there, especially with Trey White out. So I do think, especially with Godwin lining up in the slot, and the dude went off last week, right? We all know that, is Tyrone Johnson's got to show up. This has got to be a Tyrone Johnson game, and we got to make Brady hold that ball that extra half second and throw that ball to the outside. Now, that might not be a good strategy either because of our corner situation, but is giving them those easy slot routes. And obviously with AB being out, it's going to be primarily Godwin, right? So Tyrone Johnson versus Godwin, that's the matchup to watch. So that leads me to my Buffalo defensive player to watch as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, people said Mike Evans had a down game last week as Godwin and Gronk had a big game. Evans still had 99 yards last week. So, it's really crazy to think about that. Antonio Brown is out right now. This offense is really good right now, but its ceiling with Antonio Brown is that much more fierce. Think about Buffalo right now without Trey White. If Bucs even had Antonio Brown on the field at once, crazy things could happen. I'm hoping AB back on the field soon in the midst of that 3-game suspension. Consider it all being, but I think that'll be a good match. I think the Bills corners against the Bucs receivers are something to watch in this one. For sure. I think it's going to be game on. I think it's going to be who's guarding Godwin, who's guarding Evans, who's across from these guys, and that's really going to play big factors into this ball game. So, Cats can't join us tonight, our co-host, for his Bucs defensive player to look out for. He's kind of thinking like you. He's choosing Carlton Davis, cornerback on the Bucs. That's our big dog. That's our number one. That's our lead back there. He just got back off injured reserve last week, and we'll talk about the Bucs' health in a minute, but he just got off injured reserve. He had a very efficient and effective game last week, and we'll look to keep that going. I'd imagine he's going to be on Stephon Diggs most of the game, if not all games. So that'll be something to keep an eye on there, as Diggs is one of the best wide receivers in the league, and as Carlton is one of the most up-and-coming corners in the league. That'll be a fun matchup to keep an eye on there. And Carlton Davis really was a huge part of this Bucs Super Bowl team last year, and he's really been a big part when healthy this year of a pass defense that looks a lot better when he's in the game. Generated five sacks last week as a defense. That helps with coverage down the field. When our corners, nothing against Pierre Desir's, Russ Cockrells of the world, but when you have guys like that in the ball game and they're lining up 10 yards off a wide receiver, the quarterback could just play pepper and spray all day. He could drop back, throw slants, make adjustments to outs, ins, button hooks for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-yard gains that'll chew you up. Now we got Carlton Davis back, Jamel Dean back, Sean Murphy-Bunting back. It gives us the freedoms to play press football a little more, get up on those wide receivers, and gives guys like Vita Vea, Will Golston, yada, 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 Shaq Barrett time to try and get after the quarterback. So Carlton Davis coming back is huge. If I had to pick a player of the game to look out for defensively for the Bucs, so I think it's going to be Devin White. He's been banged up lately, although he's looked better and he's banged up. The biggest thing about Devin White for me is Josh Allen. He's going to have to be the X factor on Josh Allen. When Josh Allen takes off, it's going to have to be Devin White or Levante David, but Devin White's a little younger, got that giddy-up speed. He is a little banged up right now, so we'll see how that goes. But Devin White will be interesting in this one. Dawson Knox is an effective tight end in Buffalo. So between Josh Allen running, Dawson Knox catching balls, and a lot of effective weapons on Buffalo, we're going to have to see Devin White play with the high motor. He was pissed. He said Vita Vea took a sack away from him last week. So, Devin's going to try and do everything he can to get that sack back this week. The Bucs' biggest hamstring, though, has been scrambling quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see how a very good scrambling quarterback does against this defense. The reason why we struggle with them is because we're so aggressive that we overrun our spots. And, they take advantage of that sometimes. Daniel Jones has in the past. So have others. Jalen Hurts has when we played Philadelphia this year. Scrambling quarterbacks have gotten advantage of us. So we'll see what happens there. So, Stunna, on the Bucs side, we have Carlton Davis and Devin White so far. Who you going with to close out this defensive segment?
First, I want to say that we have problems scrambling quarterbacks because Todd Bowles plays a lot of cover one. As far as the Bucs MVPs, I mean, I'm gonna go with Antoine Winfield Jr. and Ndamukong Suh as my two players to watch, and possibly Richard Sherman if he ends up playing that other safety role this week. So,
yeah,
go ahead,
Stunna.
I was just gonna say I know that Winnie had a couple missed tackles, so I know he's going to come out there and give his best this week. And Ndamukong Suh is playing at a phenomenal level for being as old as he is. He's really a great player, and he really does deserve a gold jacket. And then, you and I know, with Whitehead out and with Anderson out, Mike Anderson, we need help with that other safety. Andrew Adams is decent, and then they were playing Crockwell back there. He was playing himself out of position against Atlanta. So I think if Sherman does come in and play that role as the other safety in the too high look that we give, I think we're going to be very formidable against that passing attack.
Yeah, because Jordan Whitehead remains out and Mike Edwards is on suspension right now. So it's really just Adams and Cockrell back there, and obviously Winfield. And like Stunna said, Winfield missed a couple tackles last week, so look for him to have a big game. Me and my pops noticed that watching the game. Winfield had a couple missed ones, but it's Antoine Winfield. He's not going to let that affect him. Speaking of all these guys, the Bucs are getting healthy. It's been a thing of hindrance all year. The Calvary's been on the way, and it continues to be on the way. Richard Sherman's coming back. He's been practicing at safety a little bit to get his toes wet. We got Carlton Davis back. We recently got Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean back. We did lose Jordan Whitehead, sadly, as we were getting healthy. Vita Vea, we thought he could miss a lot of time. Then the game he returned, he actually lost a tooth, missed no time from that. It's just been a crazy revolving injury door. Ellie Marpet was out for a little bit. Aaron Stinney was out for a little bit. Now we're starting to get healthy. Not that many injuries. We've seen Gronk miss time earlier this year. So it's really been a big thing for the Bucs, the NFL in general, but a big one for the Bucs for sure. Stunna, what say you on the health status of the Bucs and us finding our health down the stretch?
I think we're playing December football, and I just think we have great leadership with our veterans, like at the quarterback position and other places. So, the biggest help is going to be Brady. We have played this year with our second and third string offensive guards, and we've been able to hold up just fine. So down the stretch, as long as Brady's healthy, I'm very confident. And with our secondary coming back to full strength, that's going to assist us as well.
Yeah, Brad, what say you on the Bills' health and their bill of health, and if they could be doing better or how they're looking heading into Sunday?
Yeah, our bill of health, pun intended there. And really, we've been really healthy. And I know ESPN released an article a couple of days ago grading the health, and really it's just Trey Wright. So that's really it. We got bit by the COVID bug, who hasn't lately, it seems. I know the Chargers are going through it right now with that wide receiving core. But we're good. Besides the corner, which is a huge loss. Don't get me wrong. You can't lose a top 5 corner, and we don't have much depth. Like I said, we got Dane Jackson making his second career start versus Mike Evans this week. So boom, alert to Tom Brady. But is besides Trey White being out, we are good. We got Spencer Brown back, our big right tackle, rookie 3rd-round pick out of Northern Iowa, who's been a stud and a steal for us. We didn't even know that going into the year. He was not penciled in as a starter, but we got him back last week. We're fully healthy, really. It's just Trey White. So we got really nothing to complain about compared to other teams in the league.
Trey White is a big one, but if that's all you're dealing with, then, maybe that's a blessing. So we've had to rotate Endora D-back in Tampa. We've pretty much missed every D-back at some point, whether it's been Richard Sherman, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, Antoine Winfield, Jordan Whitehead, Mike Edwards. They've all literally missed games all the time this year. So it's interesting to see that 17th game play a factor too. If some teams will play load management down the stretch, if they have playoffs locked up, although every team's vying for that 1 seed at the end of the day, because you only get one bye week now, and that bye week is so important. So a guy like Leonard Fournette, though, I could see the Bucs giving off a little more down the stretch. Guys like Gronk, because we still have Brayton, OJ Howard and whatnot, and I really don't think Howard's going to be back next year. So I think as we go down the stretch for both of these teams, obviously Bills are fighting for a playoff spot a little bit more right now than Tampa, because we're very fortunate. It's funny because the NFC South at one point had 3 playoff teams in the picture. And now we're really looking at one, obviously, that's 7 seeds wide open for 5 or 6 win teams right now. But I really don't see it being Atlanta without Calvin Ridley. I really do not see it being Carolina the way they're going. I mean, like we talked about the bowl, being one of the let down offensive coordinators of late. Joe Brady, just a couple months ago, was supposed to be this crown next head coach, and now he's out of a job in Carolina. So, and then you got the Saints, who don't even know who their quarterback is when they wake up on Sunday morning. So the NFC South, we're in a much better predicament. And as much as I want that 1 seed, we still have good players. Like if we're bunching a Leonard Fournette down the stretch, if a Rojo or Giovanni Bernard or Keyshawn Vaughn plays, yeah, we're going to lose some production, but not a ton. And then same with Gronk. If we, rest him a little more down the stretch and play a Bray or OJ Howard. And I'm not talking about this week against Buffalo or next week against New Orleans. I'm talking about when we sandwich the Jets in between Carolina. One of those games, you could probably let up a little bit. Whether it's week 17, 18, we'll see what happens. So I'm glad that, it's good for you, at least besides Trey White. Buffalo's looking decent in health down the stretch, and the Bucs continue to seep back into health a little bit. This is a big game coming up. So big, we got Tony Romo on the call, and Jim Nance is along with Romo as well on CBS, 4:25 Eastern Time, 3:25 Central Time. Do you believe this is the biggest game left on Buffalo's schedule? I know they have another clash with the Patriots and some other AFC foes coming up as well, but they've been struggling lately. So is this the biggest game coming up? If they win, it's a statement game, perhaps their biggest statement game of the year. If they lose, they're down but not out, as they still have to play New England and other AFC squads. Is this the biggest game left on Buffalo's schedule, or how do you look at it? Because when I look at Buffalo, the rest of their season after Tampa goes as followed. They play Carolina at home. They go on the road to New England. They play Atlanta and the Jets at home as well. So realistically, you're probably going to choose this game, the New England game, or just that last week game, just because that could mean the playoffs on the line. You could pretty much eliminate the other ones between Carolina and Atlanta. So which one you rolling with and why?
Yeah, no, that's probably the best question of the day. Is you want to say your next game is the biggest game, but statistics will tell you that it has to be the Patriots game, just because pure seeding and conference standings, division, whatever you want to call it, is that if we lose to the Patriots again, you can kiss that division out the window, right? And that's going to hurt our AFC tiebreakers with the Colts and all these other teams that we might get wrapped up in. Well, we lost to the Colts head-to-head. We're going to lose that tiebreaker. We're going to lose all these tiebreakers. So the rest of those teams that you named, NFC teams. So that's the biggest factor to me is our AFC record, especially losing the Titans earlier this year as well, and other games that we could have won. who envisioned the Jaguars, obviously, right? So the statistics point it has to be the Patriots. But in terms of morale, how do you go from losing again, right? And we'll get to predictions, right at the end of the show of the score and whatnot. But it has to be the Patriots. I really wish, when the schedule came out, and obviously I'm biased being down here in Fort Myers, being close to Tampa now, being excited that they're coming to the Sunshine State, is when the schedule came out, everyone circled the Bucs for two reasons, obviously. You guys obviously got a ring recently, and Tom Brady, right? It's Tom Brady versus the Bills. We don't hate anyone no more than Tom. So when the schedule came out at first, I would have said this weekend, biggest game. But that last weekend almost forces the answer to be the Patriots when we have to verse them again. Now, if we would have won last week, I would definitely say the Bucs. But that kind of dictated that just in terms of pure statistics and how the playoffs work these days.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because Buffalo has lost to New England once. They did lose to Indy and they did lose to Tennessee. So a lot of those things, and they lost to Pittsburgh. So those could all come back and haunt them. Maybe not, though. I do agree, though, that their biggest game left is indeed against New England because that could right their ship for them one way or the other if they win or lose that one. Stunna, what say you? It's pretty much a two-way race. It was pretty much a two-way race in Buffalo. You could add that last week game against the Jets just because that might mean the playoffs. For Tampa, it's pretty much the cake is sliced this week against Buffalo or next week, Sunday Night Football at home against New Orleans. After that, we got 2 Carolina matchups and a date with the Jets in between. So it's really either Buffalo or New Orleans at this point. We could technically clinch the division as soon as this week, but we would need Carolina to lose, and we would need the Saints to lose, and the Saints play the Jets. So that's not looking too likely. Stunna, what say you? You think what's the biggest game left on the Bucs schedule?
It's the New Orleans Saints. We don't like them; they don't like us. It's bad blood in the water, sort of say. We have to prove that we can beat them. They got our GOAT. Of course, if they sweep us, they guarantee to go to the Super Bowl. Me, but New Orleans at home, we're undefeated at home. That's big. Now, the Bills is probably the biggest game left for confidence reasons because they're obviously the best team we play down the stretch. So for confidence, that we go out there and beat a good team, an elite team. We want to beat a playoff caliber team. And I don't really view the Saints as a playoff caliber team, but I do say that there's more bad blood between us and the Saints than us and the Bills. But I think for confidence reasons, it's the biggest game. But I don't think for, and it's the same thing where it's an NFC win and it's a division win and stuff like that. So for playoff legitimacy, the Saints.
Yeah, so Stunna goes with the Saints, and Stunna, your mic's still a little low, but I think we got you. Saints or Bills for me, I'm going with the Saints game just because if we lose to Buffalo, it would suck. Obviously, a loss is never a good thing, but it's an AFC opponent, and we, our biggest niche the past couple of years has been the Saints. Now that being said, and as Stunna alluded to, the 2 years that the Bucs won the Super Bowl, we got swept by the Saints in each season. So you never know. If we do lose to them this year, we might win another Super Bowl. No, but in reality, actually, Buffalo Saints, that is hard. I give a little bit of an edge to the Saints because we play crappy in prime time as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bucs unfold in prime time. Real quick, as we head into the back half of the show, we got scores and MVPs and Thursday Night Football predictions, and then our walk-off one big thing segment as we wind down here. Brad, we'll start with you here. What's your final score on Sunday, and who's your MVP of the game?
Yeah, I will start by saying if the Bills win, the MVP will be Cole Beasley. But I do not have the Bills winning. I see this game going a lot like the AFC Championship game last year between the Bills and the Chiefs, is I have the Bills jumping out on top and surprising everyone. We jumped up in that game 9 or 10-0. And then Tom Brady with a 2-minute drill, I believe, ties that game around halftime. You guys pull away a little bit in the third. A little bit by a lot of it, I really mean. And then the Bills will play some garbage time and catch up. So I got the final score 31-27. We'll make it dicey at the end, come down, one of those onside kicks, we'll get it. But I think, it's a 10-13-ish game at the half. Bucs pull away in the third. Bills try to make it close late, but it's a little too late. So I got the Bucs 31-27.
And who's your MVP of the game, sir?
Yeah, so like I said, if the Bills were to come out with a victory, I do believe it's Cole Beasley. We've been lacking a big Cole Beasley game. But I think, the easy answer would be Tom Brady. But I think it's going to be Lenny Fournette. I do think they're going to lean on that run game. Like I said, I envision them getting a little lead in the third. And then there's going to be a put me away drive, whether you call whatever you want to call it, late in the third, early in the fourth. You guys are going to ram it down our throats, and all statistics, video tells me we're not going to be able to do nothing about it. So it's going to be Lenny Fournette. I got him probably going about 80, 90 yards with the touch, maybe 2.
And he put the team on his back against Indianapolis, and he's been doing a great job this year out of the backfield, receiving the ball and running the ball. We'll get into our panel who hasn't been able to make it quick before we round out with Stun in mind. Cody G's prediction is, let's see here. He said 34-31 Bucs, Leonard Fournette MVP of the game. So kind of what you said, Lenny F. Hey, there you have it. He's 34-31, so not far off of years either. And then he also wanted to mention, because he couldn't make it tonight, but he said, I'd mentioned the fact that the Bills have only given up 8 passing touchdowns all year, which by far is the best in the NFL. So that's something to watch in this one as well. And then our other co-host, ACAT, said Godwin Offensive Player MVP of the game. And he said he has the same score as you, actually, Brad, 31-27 Bucs. So between MVPs and scores of the game, you've agreed with some people for sure.
You guys know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Either we all know what we're talking about, or we're all a bunch of jokes. One way or another, we'll find out on Sunday. Yeah, watch Buffalo 45-17, Leonard Fournette -2 rushing yards. Yeah, we'll have to circle back. Stunna, what say you with your score prediction and MVP?
All right, my score prediction is going to be 38-28 Buccaneers. All right, I view it as Buffalo is going to be competitive in the first half. They're angry and they're going to play hard. But in the second half, I see not the Buccaneers, but the Florida Heat being a big difference, because I don't think Buffalo understands the heat that goes around in December in Florida.
Oh,
so I see the Buffalo having a problem with that coming off a blizzard. Even if it gets temperate to us, which is in the high 60s, that's going to be hot to them. Okay, so I see the Bucs pulling away in the second half with Buffalo suffering from some cramps. Okay, and if I was McDermott, I would have practiced down here this week. So I see the Bucs pulling away in the second half, 38-28, and my MVP is Mike Evans.
You think Evans gets his this game?
I see Evans getting $140.
And it looks
because,
like you have
I really didn't know that, but your co-host said that they were cover 3. Because I assume a too high. We play a lot of man. We play when we're too high man under. But if Buffalo tries to play us in a cover 3, Evans is gonna kill that with the deep outs and the bench routes, man. It's gonna get ugly. So I didn't really know they ran cover 3. So now that I heard that, and that actually made me change my mind a little bit as to I think Evans goes off on them deep corners and deep bench routes.
Yeah, one quick point to jump in there. We have to cover 3 now, just because of the loss of Trey White. So we normally were predominantly, just like you guys, kind of 2-man or 2 shell over the top with the zone underneath. But not having Trey White is huge, and so just having those corners bail out is probably going to be the way we're going to end up going, especially if we want to even flirt with getting pass rush on Brady. And the second thing, the only rebuttal I got is the weather. Is we play damn good down in Miami, and that's always a thing. And so we'll be looking forward to it. And the other kicker about that is what I learned going to all these Dolphins Bills games since I've been down here is we got a lot of Florida boys on our roster. Now I know that's all across the NFL. It's a very hot spot for recruiting. But when we were down in Miami, I think 7 or 8 guys had like 20, 30 tickets at the game. So obviously that comes into play as well. I don't know if we have any from the Tampa area, but we have a bunch from the East Coast of from Florida. But I think you guys get us either way. But I don't know how much weather would be a factor with how much Florida boys we got on our roster.
Yeah, real quick before I give my score prediction and answer, that is true. Tons of Florida boys throughout the NFL. Shout out Gabriel Davis, UCF, baby. Stunna, it looks like you got your personal question. What's your opinion on Taysom Hill?
I think Taysom Hill is kind of like Slash, if you remember with Pittsburgh, Cordell Stewart. Yeah, and Slash's problem is he wanted to be a quarterback. If he would have studied to be a Slash, he would have had a productive NFL career. And I see the same problem with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, yes, you can come in and run the option, and you probably can be very accurate running the option and do a great job with that. But you're not a drawback quarterback. You need to stick to being a tight end where you're very effective, as a tight end, especially, between the hashes. This guy he's going to be able to, muscle out all the balls all the time. He's going to be a very effective and an elite weapon, if he sticks to being a H, not a tight end. You understand what I'm saying? So if he sticks to being an H-back, he can be elite at that position. If he tries to be a quarterback, he's going to be Tebow, slightly better. Who would that be? Who's the Houston quarterback right now? Tyrod Taylor. Yeah, he would be on about a Tyrod Taylor level as a quarterback, whereas an H-back, he could be elite.
Yeah, I pretty much agree there. And I didn't get asked the question, so I'll just get into my score prediction and MVP of the game. I guess screw me, right? No, I think 33-27 Tampa. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be a good game. A lot of Bucs players are thinking of this like a playoff game. Gronk has noted that already. And I think my total MVP of the game, or the guy that really is going to have to make a big impact, and he very well could in this one. I think Tristan Wirfs on the Bucs, the right tackle, the tremendous second-year player out of Iowa, he's going to continue to have a good game against some good defensive linemen, against some good pass rushers. I think that the Bucs are going to do a decent job of keeping Brady clean and upright. Last week they did, and I'm getting a disturbing question here. My opinion on Matt Rule. I think he's a joke. I've always thought he's been a joke. When he got hired by Carolina, I said that this guy won't have a job in the NFL in a couple years. He's a wannabe Chip Kelly, and even Chip Kelly knows that's not a good thing. So I think Matt Rule's ultimately going to be offered fool's gold by a college program next year. I mean, how do you turn one of the hottest coaching candidates like Joe Brady into chopped liver overnight? How do you have this Carolina team who started off that good sucking this much? And, it's a duration of things, but I think they were in over their head when they hired Matt Rule. Indianapolis Colts got away with one by not hiring this fool. I think he's nothing more than a knockoff Doug Heffernan. That's what I call him personally. He tries to be a funny guy, a wise guy on the field, make all these silly plays. He doesn't even get Robbie Anderson the damn football barely. He gets all these guys and he wastes all these guys. He keeps getting McCaffrey. I know McCaffrey's been injury prone, but somehow McCaffrey keeps getting hurt. Somehow this guy's quarterbacks can't stay healthy. Last year, Teddy B got knocked the hell out. PJ Walker got hurt last year. Now this year, no damn quarterback could stay healthy there either. So I don't know what this guy's problem is. I don't know if his blocking schemes are piss poor. I don't know. I know in the Big 12, there's no defense at all. So, he tried to draft 9 or 10 defenders in one entire draft. It seemed to have worked at the beginning of this year, then it flopped. But my opinion on him is I think he's a total joke, and I think he'll be out of the NFL in a couple years personally. But Matt Rule wasted too much time on a guy who's
Let me jump in here real quick, Tone. I want to say I think the Allen Marpet will be more of a factor in this game than Crystal, because when the 3 games we lost this year, it has to do with the defensive tackle play of the other team, whether it's the Rams, the Redskins, or New Orleans. So when we have problems blocking up front, it has been for the defensive tackle position. And I think a healthy Ali Marpet is going to be a bigger factor in this game than Tristan Wirfs on the edge.
And that could be true with Ed Oliver up the middle as well. So I like the Marpet consideration. Fellas, as we're over time here, we're going to just say a couple of things quick as we bounce out. Brad, we'll start with you. Give me your bet of the weekend or of this game, and then give me your tonight's score prediction, and give me your one big thing or walk-off as you head out of here, sir.
Yeah, we'll start with tonight as we're 15 minutes away from the game. Is me and you talked off air was I actually got the Vikes -3 before it slid to 3.5. So that hook would make a difference because I do think this game is going to be tighter than most. With the Vikings go up and down all kind of year. I think they do put it together tonight. We will see a lot of dose of that run game. Both of these run defenses struggle. So it'll be a lot of running the football, much like that Monday night game. But I got the Vikes in that game as well. And then I think, and it pains me because we grew up in Chicago, best bet of the week is Aaron Rodgers versus the Bears. Whether you want to do the spread, whether you want to take Rodgers on the over passing yards, 2.5 touchdowns over that, right? Is Rodgers going to kill him? And with Justin Fields on the other side of that, I think it's going to be a little embarrassing for Bears fans. I won't make the bet personally because I do like the Bears a little bit. But if I was a betting man trying to win money, that Packers-Bears game is not going to be close. The Bears defense isn't what everyone thinks it is. Carolina even showed that, or Carolina. The Cardinals even showed that a little bit in the rain last week. So if you're trying to make some money this week, take those Packers at the Bears because that game's not going to be close.
I like where your head's at. I have that one circled on before I dip town to put that in. And thanks again for joining us, my man. Where can the people follow you at on Twitter, and what's your one big walk-off thing heading into Bucs Bills?
Yeah, so Dr. Brad Thompson on Twitter, just how you think it would be spelled. And one big thing is we've been up and down every other week. Win, loss, win, loss. Our offense shows up, our offense doesn't show up. Does our offense finally show up? I think they do, and I think it's not enough. Like I said, I think it's 31-27 Bucs, a little too late. The Bucs defense is going to get the best of us. So it's does the offense show up? Does Brian Daboll finally figure it out? We'll see Sunday afternoon. And I know we talked a lot about prime time and whatnot, but this is prime time, man. It's 4:25. We got Romo and Nance on the call. I got it down here local in Florida, so I'm pumped I don't have to illegally stream this thing. And so go Bills, baby. It's going to be an uphill battle. We got Brady for the 300th time, and we're trying to get our 4th win ever. So go Bills.
Hey, let's hope that the Bucs reenact the Tigers, and you guys could be the Mariners in a battle of our rematch from the Little League days when we squared off.
Hopefully not, but it's very likely.
Hey, no, but thanks again, brother. It's been an awesome one with a lifelong friend. I appreciate your time, and it should be a fun one Sunday, man. Good luck to you guys.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. That's Brad Thompson, everybody, former college football player, NCAA football at North Central College, and member of Bills Mafia. Stunna, what say you? What's your one big thing, and what's your walk-off, and what's your score prediction on Thursday night's game?
Score prediction Thursday night game is going to be Pittsburgh 21, Minnesota 17. But my bet of the week is Florida plus 7.5 in the Gasparilla goal against UCF. UCF's got way more to play for. I like UCF to cover that.
Hey, I like that one too, honestly.
Yes, sir. What was your other question?
What's your one big thing or walk-off about the game on Sunday? What has your eye?
Fire the cannons, man. I want to see, because we know Bucs fans know that we're going to get flooded by Bills fans, because whenever we play an up north team, they come to the stadium as a vacation. We know that. So are the Bucs fans going to be able to bring more energy, bring more volume than the Bills Mafia head to head to two passionate fan bases? And the Bills always keep it clean. They're not really the jerkwater fans that we deal with, like Giants fans, etc. And then are they going to be wearing Zubaks? Can we clown them as well? But, it's going to be, can our fans step up in the game, give that energy, raise the red flags? Can we get our fans excited, get behind this team, okay, that we all love? And shout out to AB. All the haters can kick it Boulder.
Yes, sir. And yeah, I agree with you, Stun. I think that's a hell of a words of wisdom. Yeah, Buffalo fans aren't the jackasses Giants or Jets fans seem to be. So thank you, New Yorkers, for providing some decent people. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, hope AB's back on the field soon. Bet of the weekend for me is the Washington Redskins or Washington football team plus 4.5 at home against the Cowboys. I think that's good value right there. They're one of the hottest teams in football, if not the hottest in the NFC at the very least. Dallas has had their fair share of struggles lately. Injuries and viruses to the coaching staff has hindered them. Thursday night football prediction, I'm going to go Vikings 28, Steelers 23. I think the Vikings get the best of the Steelers tonight in a 5-point game. Although I didn't, 3.5 was tricked me out of the spread. I took money line. That's a different story. Hopefully Vikings scratch and claw one out here. And then my one big thing, Joey's big thing is he followed Brad on Twitter. He says, be good on once now, Brad. So there you go, Brad. You could tap back in. Any words on that?
Oh, yeah. We've been back and forth all day. And believe it or not, Joe, I am not a Wentz hater. I just think he's not top 5.
And that's fair. And, Wentz is playing good ball this year. Top 5.
Wentz is good, but he's like a glass that breaks when you drop it.
Yeah.
Don't
yeah.
tell
Joe. Once is having a good year. There's a couple quarterbacks having good years. So my one big thing this week.
He's a good quarterback. He's just always injured. He's always going to be hurt.
I agree with that. He is a good quarterback. He's just oft injured. This year, he got hurt that one game. He's played banged up this year, so he's put his big boy pants on and he's braved some things out this year. So maybe he's getting a little tougher. We'll see if he could keep it up the duration of his career in Indianapolis. I think he will be here for years and beyond after what he's done this year with limited weapons. So I think that the Colts found their quarterback for at least a couple of years. We'll see what happens. It is the NFL. Weird shit happens all the time. You never know. But my one big thing this weekend, and I'm a big advocate on it, is just enjoy the football, folks. College football's in bowl game season. It starts off December 17th. NFL's heading into the playoffs soon. That means we're nearing the end for it all with the finish line date of February Super Bowl matchup. So do the math. We have less than 2 months of our beloved football back until we go into hibernation mode. Get on the couch this weekend. Get your fat man pants on. Cook some good food. Unwind a little bit. Devour into it. Watch some games. And then starting Friday, man, all of us college football junkies out there, woo! We got bowl game season, baby. Bowl game season. You know you're going to be throwing cheddar on the line every damn day for that. I know I will be, at least. I don't care if it's a Duke Mayo Bowl with North Carolina and South Carolina playing, Gasparilla Bowl with UCF, or Florida, or even the Outback Bowl where you got Penn State taking on Arkansas. You know I'll bet it. So follow us at Handicappers and Dixie Football Nation on Armchair Quarterback Saturday and Sundays. You could get some betting advice and so much more. Shout out to Bucs Life Media for having us on their Facebook. We truly appreciate it. Shout out to everyone tonight who made this episode possible. Joe has commented. People on Facebook have commented. Casey McCall has commented. Thank you for all of that. Bucs Life Media had a fantasy question about the Bills backfield. It's been another tremendous episode of the Buccateers. You can get the instant replay. Maybe not instant. It'll be up at some point tonight, though, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so much more. You could catch a replay on our YouTube at Buccateers. You can follow us on Twitter at Buccateers. On behalf of Dr. Brad Thompson, on behalf of Tampa Stunna, on behalf of ACATS, Cody G, and Bucko the Bruce, who couldn't join us tonight, I'm Tampa Tones. That's been the crew. That's the Buccateers podcast. Playoff preview this weekend, folks. Enjoy it. Bucs Bills 425. Until then, I'll be there. My ass will be in the stands cheering loud and proud. I can't wait. Anyways, fellas, let's go Bucs. Some might say otherwise. Enjoy your night, everyone.